And we're so glad you're here today. I have the pleasure of inviting our brand new president and CEO of the Ford Family Foundation to just do a little welcome. And Kara, come on up. Can you hear me well enough? Okay, perfect. Come on up, Kara. We're so pleased she's here.
What? It is so good to be here today, and so good to see you all, those whom I met last night and those who I know have been really deep partners with the foundation and advocates and change makers and visionaries where you are. So I just want to say thank you for traveling the distance. Eastern Oregon in the house, I know. We talked about that last night. And I wanted to share a couple really brief quotes because I love poetry and I love meditation. And as these moments together are so precious and so unique. I know this group I heard last night has not been together in person in 4 years, and probably this constellation of people, it's probably the first time. Right. If you'll bear with me, I'll start with one quote and then I'm going to end with a haiku. Each day holds a surprise, but only if we expect it can we see, hear, or feel it when it comes to us. Let's not be afraid to receive each day's surprise, whether it comes to us as sorrow or joy. It will open a new place in our hearts, a place where we can welcome new friends and celebrate more fully our humanity. This is from a Dutch Catholic priest named Henry Nouwen, if you've heard of him, and one of his most important books and contributions to the field of both theology and psychology was The Wounded Healer. And I think a lot of the work we do, and maybe because of the lives that we have lived and the experiences we've had, we carry with us wounds and scars that are parts of marking who we are and our journey on this life. In this life. And so I hope that you make space for all of that today. I know many of the families that we work with and many of the families that we care about are still struggling in the midst of mental health and mental health challenges perennially and then also acute because of what we've all been experiencing and are still experiencing in our world. And so I hope that today you will find balm for your soul as you look through. I just got to flip through a little bit of what Sue handed me last night, just the level of ambition and care and love that is expressed in each of the words and the documents that you all are putting together, both micro and macro, big and small, locally, and it is as systems. And so I hope that you find this space to dream today. Our job is in the dream business. Our job is to believe that change is possible. Our job is to be with you in the trenches. Our job is to fail with you and say that's okay. I've said this before, perfection is not very interesting. It's actually quite boring. And it's actually quite crushing. And so I say this to the team. They've heard me already. I've been here 5 weeks, but you'll hear me model imperfection consistently in small and big ways. And so I invite you to be imperfect and think about the children that like to play with paint and make a mess. Right? And you'll never know what is going to emerge, because that is really the privilege and the vantage point of philanthropy. So with that, I'll say one last thing because I love haikus. I'm not a great haiku writer, but I love them. And this is a book, and I'll leave this if anybody wants to see it. I'll leave it there if you want to flip through it. But a good friend of mine's sister during the pandemic, she decided to write a haiku every day. And this is the haiku, Seasons, Cycles, Flow, Autumn's Folding. And her name was Royce Holiday. And she's from Minnesota, which is where I just moved from. And this is the one that struck me today. Pale sun, weak shadows. Between the seasons, we stand watch. Paused, waiting, still. I'm going to read it one more time. Pale sun, weak shadows. Between the seasons, we stand, watch. Paused, waiting, still. She asks, am I prepared for whatever lies ahead? Thank you.
Perfect way to start the morning. Thank you so much, Kara. I'm not even sure if I said who I was. Good morning. I'm Robin Hild-Zumbar. I'm with the Ford Family Foundation, and I have the pleasure of supporting all of you in this amazing work that you do in the community around coordinating services for families. I want us to know who's in the room, but there's too many for each of us to talk, so we're going to do some table introductions. But before we do that, what I wanted to do, and I think Kara started us on this path, but I wanted to invite you to, I'm going to move away from this microphone. Can't do that. I'm sorry, Sarah, I have to. I can't do it. I wanted to invite you all to take 3 deep breaths with me. How I describe it for myself, my particles are all kinds of places. My mind is in a million places. Some of it's at home. Some of my thoughts are with my worries of people in my life. And so what I would really love to do is invite all of you to bring as much of yourself as you can here. One of the things about the work that we're doing and in this kind of space, we're in our head a lot. So I know I spend way too much time in my head, and the perfection, that's where that critical minds can be. And what I'm inviting you to do, and I'm inviting myself to do, is to connect my heart and my mind today as much as possible and let those be connected and not separated. And so I would love for you to have both feet on the floor if you want to. And I would invite you, if you need to put hands behind your back if it's easier to breathe deep. And I'm just gonna lead us in 3 deep breaths. Oh, you know what? I've got this beautiful chime that's gonna help me. Breathe in. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do that. It really helps me. I hope it helps you to be here and to set that tone for us being in community today, being together, and creating as safe a space as possible. We haven't been together like this for 4 years. And some people are more uncomfortable than others. I know for me, I am going to probably run up and hug someone and they might say, oh, I wish she would have asked. So just be mindful today of everyone's different levels of comfort. And we want to create lots of safe spaces. When I have you at your table, introduce yourself. Just say your name, maybe where you're from, maybe your role. We definitely want to know who's in the room today. And reflect on a time that you needed support, and just think of a thought or a word that you think of that made that possible or that made it helpful for you. The wordle on the slide is the one we all created virtually last year. And I have a new in-person word cloud, old-fashioned style sticky pad over here. If at your table, when you think of those words, if you want to write it down on a sticky note, there's lots of materials on your table, and we'll create a new word cloud by the end of the day. Feel free to write things up there. The world that we all live in, sometimes it gets easier to use acronyms or jargon or kind of things that shorthand for us. It's not helpful for people who aren't in our circles, and there are people from all kinds of circles today, and everyone extend your heart out to our families that are here today. The most important guests are here. Thank you so much. And in bringing them into this space, it is really important to me, and I know to all of you, that we use language that is people-centered and not profession-centered, or would make it so I wouldn't know what you were talking about sometimes, because that's not the jargon that I would use. And so I just wanted to remind us all to be mindful of that. Okay. Robin, take a deep breath. I think there's another click here. We had the suggestion. There's a term that we use in this group that's the magic wand. So you have a journal, you have these prompts, But if you hear or think of something today that you're like, gosh, outside the box, if I had a magic wand, here's what I think we need to think about, do, or plan. Keep track of those. Keep your magic wand moments. Those will be really important. Your coordinators at the end of the day will be asking you, like, did you have any magic wand moments? And so we just wanted to remind you that's something that we all have a good time with. Okay. I have to keep talking for a little bit, and then I promise I'm not talking all day, but I am aware right now, and I'm eye on time, friends. What are we doing? I'm kind of right on time. Okay. Whew. All right. In your packet, there's also a very big handout, which I love how big it is. And it's our theory of action. I just want you to have it nearby, because some of the things that I'm going to say when I talk about our origin story, it's kind of like I think you will see reflected in the theory of action that all of our communities created. I hope you see it reflected in this theory of action. And throughout the morning and throughout the day, the poster sessions in the corners, the theory of action is our North Star. So I just wanted to point it out to you so that you start to see some of the things that you hear reflected in that. So, our origin story. So I came to the foundation in 2016. I'll stop dancing, Sarah, and be in one spot. Okay. I'm like, okay. I came to the foundation in 2016, and before I came to the foundation, Christy Cox with Kiwi Cook and childcare, or the Children and Youth and Families Department, they had been doing listening in the community and trying to bring home visiting partners together and gather data and to look at what the needs were. And there's some things that they found out. And one of the things that I learned when I came here to the foundation in 2016 is that the listening that had been done revealed there's a lot of home visiting programs. Not every community has as many as others. Some have some programs, some have more. Rural communities have less opportunities. We knew that the data told us that a fraction of the amount of families that would be eligible for home visiting had access to home visiting, and so we knew that there was a need for more home visiting. We also knew that from listening that there weren't relationships built amongst the home visiting programs. And in fact, sometimes there was broken relationships or competition that would prevent them from working together and serving more families. And for example, one program might have an opening and not even know that the other program had to turn a family away or tell them to wait. And we also knew that there were just missed opportunities around equity, where each program might have different levels of resources available for quality professional development. And they're all in the same community, and they're all doing their own, like, finding trainings, finding opportunities for resources and technical assistance. And so we thought, what if we worked with the community and resourced a neutral coordinator that would bring everyone together and just start with relationships. So the theory of action today, when you hear about the different buckets, we call them buckets, and we haven't been able to shake that. And the 4 posters in the room sort of speak to those. But in the theory of action, you'll start to see that there's 4 things that we wanted to work on. The first one is internal communication, and that was about relationships. So we wanted to have home visiting models come together and build a relationship, and we just start with that, just start with relationships. And from there, all of you in the community with the coordinators and with the PSU, the Portland State University Evaluation Team, created this theory of action. And we've revised it 3 times. This is our 3rd version. With all of you in that conversation and with the data that was being collected. So the next thing that we wanted to do is make sure that the services were coordinated. So working on coordinated intake and referral was important for the story that I just shared about the lack of coordination. The other thing that we heard when we were listening is that if you were in any of the health, social service, or education sectors, it was really difficult to refer families to home visiting because it's complicated. We didn't know what would be a good service for the family, and so the coordinated intake and referral was a reflection of wanting families to easily be able to make choices that were best for their families in a way that was not complicated and it was accessible and available to them. So that was really important. Another important thing was that shared professional development. So if you have multiple home visiting models who have different budgets and ability to hire training, what if they all work together? What if we coordinated those? And so if we brought a really great speaker to your community, what if you all pooled funds? What if you coordinated that together and that all the home visiting models had access to the same high quality training? And there was a byproduct of shared professional development, which is we think that if you are in the same room learning together, you're building relationships, shared language, that helps families too. So there's all kinds of unintended and intended positive impacts of those goals. And then the last one is external communication, because we all know that getting word out to community, getting word out to parents, to other professionals, it needs to be simple. It needs to be easy for them to understand what it is that you're talking about. And so coming up with strategies for external communication with partners and families was also one thing that was really important, that we did that together and not in our silos. So a little bit of our origin story, why we did this, a little bit of like how we're doing it. You're gonna get a lot more information from everyone throughout the day, but that is one thing I wanted to share. There is also just a little timeline that tells a little bit of the launch of the project was in 2016 in 3 regions, and this last year, Eastern Oregon joined us. Yay! And in 2020, we all took a step back and we went virtual, and we did a really good job. We came together every year. We were still doing this amazing work, and it's amazing to me when I look at some of our data, how we were able to keep the momentum, and it's all because of all of you and our PSU team helping us track that and keep us on track. In 2022, the Early Learning Council, and you'll get to hear from Sue Miller today, but the Early Learning Council prioritized the Home Visiting System Committee. So this is important, and again, we'll hear more today, but for the state to prioritize home visiting system coordination is amazing, and it's a reflection of the importance of the work that all of you are doing, and you all got a little bit of a head start. So that's exciting. And then in 2023, at the beginning of this year, Eastern Oregon expansion, today's event in person, and then we can look forward today to 2024, watching the work that you do continue to evolve, but also go statewide each year incrementally after that. So just a little bit of a like where we've been, where we're going. Okay, and I am gonna now turn it over to the eval team. And someone's going to tell me if I'm off time or on time. I'm doing good? All right. Thank you. I will just call up Callie, Beth.
Okay. Perfect. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Beth Green. I'm the Director of Early Childhood and Family Support Services at Portland State, and have had the great pleasure of working with you all through the 8-year journey on this project, as well as some of you many other things over the many, many years that I've been in Oregon and doing this kind of work. So I'm going to share a little bit. I'm just going to kick us off and then hand it over to my amazing team, Callie and Ron. A little bit about our perspective on evaluation. And I also have to say how much I love this meeting because it starts with the data, and it's just been such an integral part, and oftentimes that's not the case. So it's just been a real pleasure. All right, let me see here. There we go. Okay. So why evaluate? Evaluate has been, and we'll come back to this in a minute, it's been a core value for this project since the very beginning. But I always want to say to people, and I know if you've been listening to me over the years, you've heard this before, that the lens that we bring to evaluation is not what people often think about when they think about data and evaluation. We are not about report cards. We are not about like monitoring and holding people accountable in any sort of negative way. Our role has really been as thought partners and to ensure that the data that we are collecting is used and actively integrated into the learning along the way, because systems work is not linear. There's been many changes and shifts, and that will continue to be the case. So how can the data support that learning and direct the work in a way that feels like a supportive partner and not like someone judging whether you're doing a good job or not? So the evaluation has been grounded in a few things. First of all, just informing the path, as I said, a non-linear path. It's been very like this, even though the timeline looks straight, it's not a straight journey. To really support those steps along the way. To describe the footprints, so telling the story has been a key part of what we've tried to do, and that includes the story of the collective work that you're doing with home visiting systems change, as well as telling the stories of the families along the way, telling the stories of how the systems have been brought together to build relationships and build coordination. So tell the story, describe the footprints. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're going to share a little bit about today. But again, I love the fact that the coordinators and the other folks involved in this project have been enthusiastic recipients and users of data. And yeah, so anyways, it's a great partnership. Okay, so Robin pointed you to our theory of change, because I know you probably can't read all those tiny little words up there, but you have a big one in front of you. We have partnered with the folks doing the work along the way on our theory of action. I've always been a big fan of the theory of change or the theory of action, but in my experience, it is a rare project that actually uses that theory of action as the kind of touchstone for really making sure, are we doing the things the way that we want to? Are we doing things in line with our values? Are we making sure the resources are in place? Are we seeing changes along the way? Are we shifting and learning? And are we tracking to our results that we think are meaningful? So that's why we've revisited it a few times, because at the beginning, we weren't totally sure what the theory of change would be or what the right results would be or what the capacities might be needed. So we've really used this to guide our work. And when you look at this, you will see that data is a core value. And that's really been part of the lived experience of this project. We're going to talk a little bit about today some of the just tidbits of data that we've been collecting around some of the strategies and capacities and changes over time. As well as some of the results that we've been able to track really at the systems level. So how do you track whether people are in positive relationships with each other? How do you know whether core value of relationship development and starting with relationships has really changed? Well, we actually have some data that shows amazing progress in terms of shared understanding, level of trust among home visiting partners, positive relationships, as well as some of the more concrete things like, are there improvements in the ability to share resources around professional development? Are there improvements in coming together to try to coordinate intake and referral for families? So that's the basic framework for our evaluation. And I think at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Callie and Ron, who are going to talk about the theme for today's meeting, which I'm very excited about, which is how do we start really positioning the project around strengthening family leadership, which is something we've been talking about, but it has been not as much a priority or focus until now. So I'm really excited to see that being lifted up. Right, Callie. So that is
Thank you, Beth. And I just have to say, too, I am so thrilled to be here in person with you all, share this space. It means a lot to me. I'm Callie Lamberth. I'm a senior research associate at the Center for Improvement of Child and Family Services, Portland State, with Beth and Ron. And we have the privilege to be able to work with you all around evaluation and data. So like Beth said, this is a really important moment in the life of the project to more intentionally focus on what family leadership and decision making in the process looks like. And so it's a thrill to have family members who participate in programming and also in leadership and decision making to inform systems change here today. So we're going to be weaving in that theme throughout our presentation of some of the data highlights from this past year. And so many of you may have participated in an annual systems survey. It's a survey that you complete. The original 3 regions have completed each year, most recently in 2022. And Eastern Oregon joining the project this year. Many of you all might have participated in the survey this spring. And then we had a series of interviews also this year with across the 4 regions to really understand a little bit more your insights around what's changing, where are some of the sticking points that you're facing, how to work towards moving through those, and of course then around what are the opportunities for families to be involved in that process all along the way. So in terms of, again, framing these buckets of work, governance and internal communication, like Robin said, it really was foundational relationship and trust building. And so in interviews of this year, some of the strategies that we heard you all talk about, highlight, which were important, were of course convening regular meeting opportunities. So there's structures in place in each region for folks to come together in collaborative work. And then utilizing some communication tools, so whether that's electronic kinds of things or exchanging kinds of materials that programs have. But those are foundational, right? So the ongoing relationship and trust building, that maintenance, and then also some really concrete structures or strategies within that. At the same time, there's some opportunities, especially around continuing to strengthen internal communication as it relates to engaging families in that process. And so I think you all in your regions, you're finding ways to connect with existing family leadership groups that might already be informing systems change, maybe not specifically to home visiting, but that you're maybe identifying ways that that could be happening, as well as being really intentional about thinking about the kinds of participation supports that are going to be necessary for that. So it does include things like accounting for families' access to transportation or childcare, but it's also the way that meetings are structured, the way that folks are understanding roles, clarity, and that they're welcoming spaces. So from the systems survey, one of the ways that work in this bucket could be reflected is around this survey item, which says that the Home Visiting Collaborative has a shared and common vision. And at the left-hand side, this is the % of people who participate in that survey at the very start of the project for that region. So for the original 3 regions, that was 2016. For Eastern Oregon, that was 2023. And what you can see, it ranged from 41 to 75%. But what that suggests is that there's a lot of foundational work that had already been happening around relationship building and kind of understanding what is the purpose of coming together around home visiting systems change. What we see on the right-hand side is change over time from folks who participated in the survey at each point, at each year across the project so far. And so while there was still a fairly strong foundation that folks were reflecting back at the start of the project, it only continued to grow. And so we think about, well, what were some of those things that allowed folks to come together, build and share and carry out that shared vision? So amazing to see that even through the pandemic was sustained because of the work that you all are doing. And then, of course, through the interviews, and you have some additional quotes on your table, on table tents, that really are emphasizing a range of perspectives that we certainly can't include in all of the slides, but we want to make sure are available for reflection. But around governance and internal communication, one survey participant this year was really talking about, yes, it will be fabulous for parents to be able to inform systems change in building, and also recognizing the power that that has for parents to connect with each other, right, and learn from each other and build that power. So with that, I think I'm going to pass it to Ron to talk about the next couple buckets.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. I'm Ron Joseph, part of the PSU research and evaluation team with Callie and Beth. So excited to be here. So many faces that I've seen over Zoom over the past couple of years, but never actually been in space with. So it's really exciting for me. Like Callie said, I'm going to be walking us through a couple of buckets. So to start things off, coordinated referral. Some of the results that we saw over the data collection that we did this past summer, as far as strategies that have been effective, are the building and maintaining of relationships and referral paths. So, you know, the communication between different programs and folks, and, you know, sort of keeping those channels of communication open really helps facilitate the work and, you know, help it move forward. Expanding and maintaining data sharing systems. So, you know, there are a number of different data sharing systems or data systems being utilized. And so finding sort of that cohesion and like where can they play nice together has been another area of success. And then again, sort of speaking to that, identifying and integrating opportunities with existing or emerging referral systems. So again, finding out where those different systems can play nice together, where can they support each other, and, you know, how do they come together. As far as opportunities for, you know, for the future that we saw, understanding outcomes and experiences of the referral process for continuous improvement. So that's sort of speaking to once folks are referred, you know, what happens after, what's the journey for them, sort of understanding how that goes for folks and where, you know, where are the areas for improvement, where are things working well, that sort of thing, being attentive to that. And additionally, addressing program concerns about enrollment numbers. So, you know, we've seen over the course of the project that, you know, there's been a greater sense of sort of culture of collaboration, all these different programs coming together. But, you know, there's still concerns that come up every now and then. So, you know, there's a need to be attentive to that and, you know, sort of figure out, yeah, how can we get everyone to continue to play nice and everything. So those are some of the highlights there. So as far as survey results, we chose to represent our community's use of shared referral form to facilitate family access to home visiting services. We can look at baseline right there in 2016 for the 3 original regions, and 2023 for Eastern Oregon. And we see that the use of a shared referral system is pretty low. Then looking at the results over time, we can see that there's been tremendous amount of growth, you know, going from 16% overall to 72%. So, you know, you can see there that in spite of issues due to the pandemic and everything, it's been huge positive growth, and, you know, hopefully we'll see that continue to grow in the coming years. As you all know, we also conducted surveys interviews this past summer with folks, and so we chose to highlight a quote speaking directly to coordinated referral. You know, this is a quote where the person is speaking about the benefit of having the facilitator, you know, have that inside knowledge of what their program does and, you know, just kind of what's going on in the area, and really the importance of having that to streamline the process. You know, that sort of warm handoff. A referral form will only get you so far, but, you know, it's important to also have those relationships established and built so that, it can facilitate that process of getting people referred. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about shared professional development and some of the strategies that we've seen there over the past year. So to kick things off, conducting workforce skills assessment and planning. So that's sort of the idea of getting a sense of, looking at the workforce as a whole. What are the skills that we have? What are the areas that there is need for improvement on? And, once you have that, you can be planful about the future and, the things that you want to focus on. So that's been an effective strategy over the past year. Convening opportunities for workforce to engage in professional development. So again, once you have that sense of what are the areas that there needs to be skill building and that sort of thing, bringing people together in order to facilitate that process of, skill building and opportunities for getting that professional development. And sort of with that, the braiding and blending of funding. So, different programs and stuff will get this pot of money to do professional development. How do we extend those opportunities to other programs so that everyone within the region can benefit from the opportunity that's there? As far as opportunities for the future that we saw, understanding outcomes and experience of service for continuous improvement. So again, sort of speaking to what happens after. Those opportunities, you've had those opportunities, how do you continue to use the knowledge and skills built there to, continue, providing services and benefits to the community. And then continue building a system of support for direct service and supervisory staff to address workforce recruitment and retention. So that's another sort of thing that's come up. Obviously we know that COVID has been a challenge for many folks in particular, and the workforce has been hit hard. So how do we sort of be attentive to that, address that, and continue supporting not only recruiting additional staff, but supporting the staff that are already in the work and making sure that they have everything they need in order to continue doing it in a way that's healthy and supportive and everything like that. As far as the survey data that we chose to represent, the home visiting system effectively shares professional development and training resources. So you see here, back at baseline 2016 and 2023, fairly high levels of the sharing of opportunities and resources. But then as we go on throughout the years, we see that number increase. Again, sort of that positive growth, and again, hoping to continue to see that into the future. And we also have a quote. So the Home Visiting Summit, which we do once a year, this is speaking to the Home Visiting Summit that happens within one of the original regions. It's open to any agency that does home visiting. So again, speaking to that idea of having these opportunities and allowing as many folks as possible to benefit from them, and how that's very important. It was really nice because we were able to get a lot of DHS workers. That was big. That felt like a big accomplishment for furthering those relationships by having them participate. So again, it's not just about having these opportunities and building these skills. It's also about continuing to facilitate the relationship building, and we know that that's so effective as far as doing this work in a way that benefits families and benefits all of us. So I think I turn things back over to Callie, and she's gonna walk us through the last bucket.
Right. Great, so the last bucket of work we're gonna focus on today is around community awareness. And that, over the past year, folks who participated in interviews talked about developing and updating communication tools. So whether that's also, again, kind of print materials or in electronic or digital formats, but having ways to talk about home visiting broadly, as well as the array of family supports, in addition to how to connect with additional resources in communities. and planning and engaging in joint community events. So we heard a little bit around folks being able to coordinate around, having a presence at communities, in community spaces, and to reflect the array of services that are available. So not each program only talking about their own work, but being able to talk about the array of work that's, the array of services that are available. And then having some information sharing sessions. So it's sort of in the bucket of internal communication, but it's also reaching out to folks who might otherwise be missing, a little bit of the story of what home visiting can do, can offer. At the same time, some opportunities that were highlighted through interviews are around understanding family perspectives on what messaging or effective messaging can look like. What's going to resonate? What is it that's important about home visiting that families are really seeking but maybe are feeling reluctant to engage in because of the way we talk about it? At the same time, to really acknowledge, understand, and navigate historical and current experiences of families that the system creates, right? So there are really important reasons why families would be reluctant to participate at the same time. So with that, we wanted to talk a little bit about the data that reflects community awareness bucket of work. And at the start of the project for each of the 4 regions, a percent of folks who agreed that families in our community understand about home visiting programs and services was relatively low compared to some of the other survey data we've looked at, which just suggests that there's additional room for growth, for opportunity, and we can think about what are the connections or resources and supports necessary between state and local levels, for example. So are there ways to talk about messaging that doesn't only rely on what people are communicating at the community level? And so over time for the original 3 regions, you see that's a little bit more gradual kind of pattern, right, for that on that right-hand side. So at the start of the project for the original 3 regions, about 1 in 4 people felt that there were that families understand about home visiting, and that's right now the most recent year we have survey data for. It's about 1/3. So I think it's a great opportunity to talk about today, later on, and think about what it takes to really communicate about what home visiting can offer the community and families. And a quote we wanted to share was speaking to the need of families being involved in that process, so having their perspective on home visiting messaging. And in this case, this person was thinking about, well, if we start with maybe once or twice a year, is that a place where we can begin to build relationships? So yeah, really understanding family experience and perspective.
It is my pleasure to welcome up Sue Miller from the Early Learning Council. Sue, I did not plan big words, and I just am realizing I have so much in my heart that I would say about how much short is good, but we would not be here today in Oregon working on our systems so carefully if it weren't for Sue Miller chairing the Early Learning Council. Thank you for all your heart and mind that you put into all of the things that you do. And I'll let you take it. I can see you're just like, let me get that microphone. And here is your advancer if you need that.
Oh, I will need that. I can push a button at a time. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you again. I'm delighted to be here. It's, as we've all said, it's so fun to actually be able to give physical hugs to people, and I'm so tired of the virtual hugs in my computer. So great to be here. And as Robin said, I am the chair of the Early Learning Council. This is a statewide council that is in statute. The governor appoints the members of the council. There are 9 of us, and I call us lay members. And then there are 6 agency directors who are also mandated to sit on this council. And so here is the very brief definition of what we're supposed to be doing. Not an easy task. We need to coordinate a unified and aligned system of early learning throughout the state. So obviously we'll check that one off next year. We're on our way. And then also that system that we're building needs to ensure that all children, no matter what their background or their community, enter school ready to learn, and that all families are healthy, stable, and attached. So quite a daunting but wonderful North Star to have, and one that everybody in this room is participating in achieving. So we are all in this together, plus thousands of other people who aren't lucky enough to be here. And one thing I want to point out on this slide we call that our flower. It's the state agencies who are an integral part of the council, many of whom are represented here today, actually. ODHS, I know, is well represented. DELC is well represented. We also have the education department, doing K-12. We have Oregon Health Authority, which we all know if kids aren't healthy, they're not going to be able to be successful, as well as their families. And then we have housing and community services, because housing is such a critical foundational issue for families. And our most recent appointee to the council, right before Governor Brown left office, was the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. Many of you may know them, and Ben Cannon, their director, and that reflects the workforce challenges and really crisis that we have in this state. So we're delighted to have HEC also at the council. So the importance of this is that it's probably the only table in the state right now where all 6 of these agencies come together once a month and talk about prenatal to 5-year-olds. And really, DELC is the only agency that has the luxury, in a way, of being prenatal to 5, even though I know Gwen Bachtel could tell me they actually serve older than 5-year-olds, but generally 5. Most of the others are sort of birth to death. So, not quite, but pretty much. So we really have the table set in the state where these agency directors get together virtually or in person and share information on what their agencies are doing focused on this population. So a very exciting and very important table. So what the council has done in the last year is created this strategic plan, and it's like 53 pages, so you'll be glad to know there aren't copies on your table, but we have copies, so we'd be delighted to get them to you. And the reason, and we spoke to a bunch of legislators about the plan a few weeks ago and told them the reason it's 53 pages long is because it represents 6 agencies' commitments to building this early learning system. And it takes 53 pages to do that, at least. So that's why it's so long, plus it's a 5-year plan. And the piece that's most relevant for all of you today is to know that a real centerpiece of this plan is home visiting. If you take the time to read this plan, you will, and if you are as compulsive as I am about these things, you'll find there are 18 references, strategies in the plan that are specifically calling out home visiting. And you have on our tables, thank you, Robin, and your staff very much, you have a list of those 18 strategies and the actions under each strategy that the agency partners have agreed that they're going to work on. So I am guessing if you look at these 3 pages of strategies, you will find the work you're doing sprinkled all through them. And in a way, as I said last night at the reception, you all really are the trailblazers. You're the ones who've helped lay the foundation for these strategies by the work you've done over the last 6, 7, 8 years. So from the council, I want to say a huge thank you for letting us learn so much from you at the regional and local levels that we are going to be able to build on at the state level. And so those are just examples. So that's the coordinated referral, professional development, workforce. It's everything we were just talking about earlier this morning and around the room. So I really do encourage you to look at that and hopefully really feel energized and also realize you've taken a lot of risks to get here. You've had to do things differently and find new ways to communicate and connect and coordinate and all of that. And so we, as I said, are going to be able to build on that at the state level now, which will be a huge gift to people all through Oregon. So our thanks goes to all of you. And it's interesting, the Early Learning Council in the last 7 years, really, since we've been reconstituted by the legislature, we've only appointed one standing committee in that time, and it's our Home Visiting System Committee. So it just gives you an example of the fact that you are a priority for us. And so that was one of our best steps. The other really brilliant step we've taken is to contract with Portland State University to provide and serve as our coordination center for this new work. And Beth's going to be talking about that. But fortunately, you've all worked with Beth and her team for years or decades, depending on how old we all are. Not to disclose any secrets, Beth. But so you know how good they are, and you know that they will ensure that what we do at the state level is based on what you all have taught us and you all have learned in your own areas. So from the council's perspective and the state, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you and turn it over to my partner, whom you know well, Beth Green.
Well, that was very embarrassing to say, but I'm very excited to be here, and thank you, Sue. I was just thinking last night that I think I was pregnant with my daughter when I met Sue, and my daughter is now 22. So there have been a few years. Okay. All right, I think you addressed some of this, but so I'm very excited to be here today and talking about this emerging new Oregon Home Visiting Coordinating Center. And we've got to figure out a way to have like fewer words in the name or something, but this is something that I was approached about, I don't know, about April or May of last year, as a recommendation coming out of a year's work with the state's Home Visiting System Committee and consultation that they got from Christy Cox, who we all know and love, or many of us know and love, really to develop and fine-tune a set of recommendations for what needs to happen at the state level to create an integrated, coordinated home visiting system. I've been around a long time. I've been sitting at home visiting tables for a long time because of my role as an evaluator and researcher in multiple different state home visiting models, and been privy to people talking about this for all of those years. Like, how do we actually create a system that's more coordinated? How do we make our models talk together? How do we do the kinds of work that you guys are doing in the regions at the state level? And there'd been fits and starts. I feel like there's a sea change at this moment, and the leadership of Sue and the council and prioritizing home visiting is a huge part of that. And Robin has actually also been a huge advocate for the state stepping up to the plate and taking this on. So one of the first recommendations was to create a program-neutral coordination center, right? That's one of the keys from this project, is to have a neutral coordinator, someone who's not funded by or affiliated with any of sort of the major home visiting programs in our state. So we were approached, would you like to run and house and be this neutral coordinating center? And I've said this before to many of you, that I had to think about it, and I still remain terrified at the prospect of all of the work that needs to happen, but also incredibly excited and motivated by the opportunity that this presents. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Coordinating Center. We're still in the very nascent, like prenatal stage, really, because it's not launching until January. So we all know the prenatal stage is important, but it's also when things are developing and changing at a very rapid pace. And so we're still figuring out as we go, right? We're trying to set this up and learn as much as possible from our experience working with these regions, and sort of begin to set the stage for that state level work. Okay, so about the center, there's also a little one-pager in your packet about the center. As I said, program neutral background, that'll be at Portland State. We have funding, thank you, OHA partners for being a major funder of this initiative, but also trying to get cross-agency contributions so that all of the major state agencies really have a stake in the game and have put money into the fact that coordination is valuable, and we need to really put money and resources into coordination because we know it just doesn't happen for free, right? It takes work. There's going to be 2 positions. A state level, we're actually calling them a state level transformation manager, who's going to be leading the policy work and the landscaping and mapping, and most important, relationship development at the state level. So really even building that basic understanding of the different models, what's out there, how do people see home visiting across the agencies, how do they come together? Really, again, centering the lessons from this project, right? You've got to start with relationships. That was actually the first of the official recommendations from the Home Visiting Committee. There will also be a regional coordinator, and it's really, I think of it more as a regional manager or more of a meta coordinator for the regions. So not specific regional work the way that our regional coordinators are, but reaching out and finding out where the regional work is happening around home visiting, how home visiting is coming to the table within early learning and other coordination activities, and then learning from you all as you're in your roles as regional coordinators and starting to facilitate and leverage what's going on already in the communities. One of the things I don't want us to do at the center is recreate any wheels. So we want to learn from what's out there and build on the coordination around early childhood systems that's already happening all over the place, and maybe this needs to center home visiting and make sure home visiting is at the table and really a priority and a focus. Okay. So our approach, again, theme for me is we're learning from the 8 years of amazing systems change work that you all have been doing, and really trying to build those lessons in from the get-go, starting with relationships, working on that collaborative communication and governance structure, like who's in the room, who's kind of making decisions, do we have people who can make systems change? When I was listening to the posters today, one of the themes that I kept hearing was, you gotta get it into the system, you gotta into policy, procedures, data systems, MOUs. You can't have it live with individual people, although we know people are important and make the work happen, but then when they leave, it doesn't carry forward, right? So you have to make impacts at the system. We're also going to really try to lead with inclusive approaches to home visiting. So we know we kind of have at least a little bit more of our arms wrapped around the major state-funded home visiting models that are present through McVie, Healthy Families, Relief Nurseries, Head Start, and Early Head Start. But how do we make sure that the community-based and especially culturally specific home visiting programs have a voice in the process? The tribal home visiting programs are included in developing the systems. So really trying to make sure that that happens in a very proactive way as we move forward. We also really want to prioritize family leadership and really thinking strongly about, like, all right, one of the things that happened for these projects is family leadership has been slow to come to the table as a priority because there was so much other work to do, right? And so many things that can change in the system in terms of the 4 buckets and the great work that you've done. And maybe a lesson learned is if you want to have family leadership in that process, you need to start earlier. So let's do that right out of the gate. Again, leveraging where family leadership is already happening in the community. Like, I don't want to create another home visiting system parent advisory group, because there's already parent advisory groups out there in the community, and even one that we just connected with at the state level. Like, let's make sure that we're building and bringing home visiting to those family leaders that are already out there, strengthening that and making sure home visiting is part of what they're talking about and helping to create the vision for the transformed home visiting system. Creating a shared vision is key, theory of action is key, and the state level stuff will have a different theory of action, maybe draws from the great theory of action that has been guiding this project, but probably will look different. To use data, so I'm really excited that both Callie and Ron are going to be helping on the evaluation side of our project. So again, bringing all the great learning that they have. And then really just spending some time. I always think of Vanessa and sort of the go slow to move fast, like really trying to slow down and say, all right, the first year is going to be a lot of landscaping, outreach, what's going on, what does the state look like, really developing those relationships and really creating a better understanding of what the system, where the system is connecting and where it's not, and then figuring out how to prioritize work to close those gaps, so the places where it's not working, we can address and prioritize as we move forward, right? This is not, we have 2 years of funding, more or less. It's not a 2-year project, as you might imagine. And I always think about you guys and like, okay, the system is so big and you've done so much amazing work, and it's been 8 years and there's still so much work to do. So it's long term, right? Systems change takes a long time and continuous effort, motivation, and investment. All right, so timeline, yeah, okay. Yeah, as I said, here's where we are. We're sort of getting all our funding in place and doing all that like contracting and stuff that's really annoying, but has to be done. We just got the position descriptions approved, and I will be blasting those out to you all and our network so that we can get great candidates for the state and regional managers as soon as PSU gives me the okay, hopefully by the end of this month. And then spending some time really onboarding, training, prioritizing our work plan. We'll be working with our steering committee and some other collaborative groups to make sure that our priorities are straight. And then spending some really intentional time learning about what's the best path forward and what are the highest priorities at the state level for systems to start to get aligned in a way that makes sense and can support the regional work, right? Because I think when you're in the community, you can do great work, but sometimes you bump into those system level things that seem intractable and really get in the way of the way that you want to work locally. So that's, I think, the things that we'll be looking for as leverage points for systems change at the state level. Okay. And then we're just going to dream big and keep going and circle around and continue the work and just keep at it, right? If I looked at this last night, I was like, oh, yeah, you reach one goal, but then you got to start over. So really, there needs to be another arrow that circles you around, because it's just constant, and it'll be a labor of love, and I look forward to working with all of you as we move forward. And this is, oh, I forgot, Robin, to do my job I was supposed to do, which is there's little index cards on your table. This is a chance I would love to hear your questions. I don't know where we are in time. Okay. If you have questions about the center or about home visiting systems coordination work that we're going to be doing, you can shout them out, or you can write them on the cards and we'll pick them up today. We want to make sure and be trying to create some communication so that you know what's going on. This is our first sort of public announcement, so yeah.
So if you have questions.
Yay!
And when either Sue or Beth answer a question, we'll just take a couple minutes before we transition to California.
Yeah.
Just raise your hand or pass forward a note or throw a note up, or you can wait and have a question.
That's a great question, and well, the first question I can say, yes. The vision is to expand the number of regional coordinators in the state. What those regions would be, I'm not sure. I personally have been advocating for them to be linked to the early learning hubs because I feel like the early learning hubs have the mandate from the state to coordinate early childhood systems. So to me, it makes sense. But I'm just me, and it's a collaborative process, so. Yes, Kelly?
Will this be connected to Family Connects?
Yes, I am. So I'm really excited about working with Eastern Oregon and our regional work because it is the one place, it's the first place where Family Connects is also happening with the Home Visiting Systems Coordination. I also think Family Connects is like an amazing opportunity for systems building, and the community alignment that has to happen with Family Connects is part and parcel of home visiting systems. Like, that's some of the work. So yes, we're connecting. We work really closely. So both Robin and Pamela Ferguson, who I just want to shout out here, who's you're the home visiting systems manager at OHA, are going to be the steering committee, our steering committee's co-chairs. And I know that there's a lot of passion there for systems change and building bridges and really, yeah.
I'm doing a happy dance.
Yeah, yeah. Family Connects, yeah, it's yeah. Oh, yay. Oh, so the 4 regions right now for Ford, that's what I'm talking about, those 4 regions. So it's Siskiyou, South Central, Coos County, and Eastern Oregon have this model. Yeah. Other questions?
I think we don't have to.
Okay, write them down and we'll pick them up.
Thank you so much. How many of you who are not from Siskiyou County know how to spell Siskiyou County? Siskiyou, yay! So when I first moved from Oregon to Siskiyou County, my biggest fear as an English language learner was figuring out how to spell Siskiyou. So I hope as we think about building relationships, next time you see a person from Siskiyou County, you'll know how to spell. Here's a trick. C-S-I, ski, because it's a ski area. And then we want you to come and spend your money in Siskiyou County. It's a beautiful place to visit. So ski-u. Pretty cool, huh? So thank you so much, and I want to give our deepest appreciation to Robin and Ford Foundation on behalf of Jackie, the First 5 California Executive Director, for making the time to make Siskiyou County a priority, and then hearing from California about our priorities. Sadly, Jackie is actually at the First 5 California Commissioners meeting, so it conflicted with today's event. But she sends her highest regards and warm wishes for collective success. Thanks to our work with Ford Family Foundation, we were honored to be invited, Siskiyou County myself as the First 5 Executive Director, we were invited to be part of a statewide planning meeting that resulted in this wonderful publication. Because now I only have 1 minute, I'm going to quickly go through the PowerPoint so that so we can move on to a wonderful next treat of presentation. So please take a few minutes and read this. Put this next to your bed as the number 1. And then next time we come, I'll see if you remember Siskiyou. And then one thing about California's efforts. So let's see. I need to do this. So just as in Oregon, we know that there's a significant amount of children in California who live in poverty and also have at least one ACEs. 22% of the children birth to 5 have at least one ACE. What's a capacity strength, though, that potential strength is there are 1.2 million children in California who are enrolled in Medi-Cal services, yet there's very little money that's being used from Medi-Cal being drawn down for home visitation services. So the summary of this presentation is California is really working hard to find new ways to benefit from existing Medi-Cal resources to support elevating home visiting programs for the 80% of the children, 80+% of the children who can benefit from, not 80, 80% of the children who can benefit from home visiting services but currently are not. The second step is to make sure that as a state, we don't compete between home visiting programs. Just like the vision of Ford Foundation, California really learned a lot from what has happened in Oregon and is committed to building relationships, building connections so that there isn't duplication. There is collective power towards finding the right fit model for every child in California with collective coordination. Just as in Oregon, there are multiple models. This probably looks familiar to all of you. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you to Early Head Start in our country. Do you remember the time when Early Head Start came on? Head Start was a center-based program, and we learned about Early Head Start. Really, they have been the cornerstone for building all these other home visitation services. So we're grateful to the federal government for seeing the importance early on and continuing to build these efforts, both nationally, statewide, and then locally. So just as in Siskiyou County, First Fives have been key partners in home visiting investments, anywhere from systems building efforts related to home visiting to actually direct services, funding of direct services. One example is First Five LA. They have a long history of investing in home visiting collaboratives and home visiting resources. And if you want to learn more, you can go to First Five LA's website to learn more. Basically, the policy framework, which is in this document, is three-pronged. First is to build equitable and family-centered services. Do you see commonalities? Pretty neat, huh? That means when whoops. Go back. I don't know how to do that. Oh, no, lunch. Okay, so the idea is come to Siskiyou County because now you know how to spell Siskiyou, and know that just as you have the 4 buckets of work, California has 3 priority areas which are very similar. And what I love about this is when you see commonality within the systems, you know you're on the right track, and you can what some people say steal shamelessly, but I call steal collectively. So together we can achieve a lot more because this is the #1 way of preventing child abuse, right? If we want to see the kind of impact in our community, the home visiting programs are gateways to collective support that goes to Family Resource Center and other supports. But it all starts prenatally in home visiting programs. Thank you so much. I feel like I have to do this because this is so exciting. I'm changing the chapter because this is like probably the most rewarding, honoring thing. Is that how you say it? Sorry, English is not my first language, and when I'm nervous, I will start talking in Armenian. And I'm very nervous because the person I'm about to present or introduce to you, many of us know, and I know you feel the same way. And I'm about to introduce. I'm about to introduce one of the most amazing human beings that I've met in my life. Somebody who has, who not only has done phenomenal work before this work was even in states' radars. Somebody who took 100 counties in a rural North Carolina and said, let's build systems before we knew what systems were. It was a time when you Googled what is systems work, they would show engineering and housing descriptions. So this person is Karen Ponder, who has had such an impact in the work that we all have done, thanks to the investment of Ford Family Foundation in understanding that when we have the right mentorship, the coach, and support, the possibilities are endless. It's my deepest appreciation and honor to introduce Karen Ponder, who, where is she? Oh, okay. Who reminds all of us that one of the most important points is to reveal in the success of others. In building community, it's our responsibility to learn how to reveal in the success of others. That's thanks to the learnings from Karen Ponder. Thank you so much, Karen. Oh, yes. I can't go there. Oh, yes, thank you.
I have a question. Would you hire someone to be a teacher director in your early childhood program who is 20 years old, had only 2 years of college, had never studied child development or education, and who had previously only done volunteer work and babysat for 50 cents an hour? Well, someone offered me that job, and those were my credentials. I sometimes think back on this and think, what the heck was that? What was that committee thinking when they asked me what I'd done? And I'm pretty sure that I've looked back a lot and thought, what was I thinking when I thought I could do that? But I enthusiastically said yes, and I jumped right into the job. What I knew from my life experiences was the love of children, little children, and the importance of families. As a pastor's daughter, I'd lived in a lot of different places. I was telling somebody yesterday I lived in a rural community where there were only 2 classrooms in the school. So I went to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, just moving over a row. And I've never loved a school as much as I loved that one. I've never loved a teacher as much as I loved that one, because she got children and families. She understood it from her being. And she made every single one of us, who were very different from each other, feel comfortable, safe, and able to learn. I also had seen the importance of families and the importance of families in children's lives, a lot of different kinds of families with different strengths and weaknesses and issues and opportunities. I'd seen that, or I knew, even from my babysitting jobs, and a summer being the music director at Girl Scout camp, I had more credentials than I thought at the time, that I really liked kids, and I thought they were so cool, and I was fascinated by the things they said that were just off the wall and so real, and I loved that, always have and always will. And I felt positive about the interactions I'd had with them. So this job actually worked out pretty well, but more importantly, it set the stage for everything else I've done in my career. I figured out that while the children were my focus, the families were my teachers, and I needed their support and their advice as the families of my children that I was serving and teaching. So from the first beginnings, I admitted that families knew children better than I ever would, and as the experts about their children, my job was to build a partnership with each family who parented and supported my children. I needed to listen, I needed to learn, and the parents were my teachers. Sorry about this. It was that belief and this experience that grounded my direct service work with children and families for the first 20 years of my career, and that later undergirded all the systems work I was able to do. In other words, the reason we need to hear from parent voices is really simple. It's because we can't do our work well without them. So today, as we think about home visiting or continue to think about it and fostering family leadership in all the work we do, I want you to consider 3 questions. The first is about leadership. What does it really take to lead and foster parent leadership? The second is about engagement. What is our role as leaders in helping family members feel valued and heard? And the third is about family voices, and I'm so delighted we have family voices in the room today. And I couldn't have been happier when I saw 2 children when I walked in the room. How will we know when family voices are being heard? We talk about it a lot. We've talked about it for years, actually. But how do we really know when they've been heard? So I want to begin by defining what I mean by families, and I have to give some credit to New America because I've always liked their definition, and I've added a little to it. But what I think we mean by families, and whether it's whether we're trying to get goals achieved and outcomes achieved for our children, for our agencies, for our system, I think the important thing is that we welcome, include, respect, and meaningfully engage any adult that matters to a child. We use the term parents to describe the full spectrum of family structures. So birth families, birth parents, adoptive parents, single moms, single dads, non-custodial parents, incarcerated parents, LGBTQ, let me say that, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer parents, foster parents, grandparents, and I will add great-grandparents, and other relative caregivers such as uncles and aunts and older siblings and non-relative caregivers. It's all of the people that it takes. It's the village that raises a child. So how can we learn from all of them? That leads me to my leadership question. What does it really take to lead and foster parent leadership? It takes a real understanding that parents and families are knowledgeable and can inform our work, and then a commitment to build onto that understanding. Most parents, including me, didn't have formal training for the most important job we'll ever do. When we raise our children, we're often just figuring it out or remembering what our parents did, whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing. We don't have that experience. But parents know children, they know their children, and they've been both observers of and contributors to their growth and development. They know their strengths, they know their areas of challenge, they may have concerns about their development in some ways, they know that. When a parent entrusts a child into our care or to receive a service, their knowledge about their child is critical to our success in doing, I would say, our state, regional, or community work. We have to know what parents feel and believe. Second, as leaders in our communities, we must be ready to teach others why family leadership is important, and how to engage families as leaders, not only of their children, but as partners and leaders in doing our work. Others learn from our beliefs, from our approaches and our actions, and sometimes it's a stretch to pull your partners with you in really using families as part of your culture and development. And then third, I would say that fostering parent leadership requires that we're willing to find ways for them to be able to participate. And I've heard many of you talk about some of these through the years, what you do to make it easier for families to participate. But we need to first listen to what they tell us they need and not assume that we know what they need because some other parent might have needed that. And meet those needs if we're really serious about including families. It will mean doing things differently. It might even change our meeting dates, which I know for a lot of groups are sacred. I mean, you just start messing with a meeting date and you're in trouble. But it could mean that. It could also mean forming specific groups where families provide the leadership themselves instead of us and our colleagues who are always willing to do that. It could also mean a paradigm shift in how we think about, how we recognize and support families as our true partners, not just a part of our work, but our partners in the work. I know many of you have heard about Michigan's parent coalitions, and I use them as a great example of a statewide structure that has really done just what I'm talking about. I did a podcast not long ago, and I interviewed somebody from Michigan, and I was thrilled with the descriptions of how the parents that they first, brought together and asked them if they'd like to help inform their work, and then they made the parents the leaders, and it's a phenomenal story. But their coalitions are all parent-led, and their agendas include providing a family perspective about the work the state is doing, but more than that, they offer ideas and suggestions about what the state might do. And I think that's the difference in including parents to sign off on our agenda and including parents to learn what would help parents participate and what would help their families in the future. These parent coalitions in Michigan have changed the way the early childhood system works there, and especially the work at the state level. The benefits have gone far beyond what they've set out to do. And what I love is that some of these former parent leaders are now leading the state's work. One of the people I interviewed, the state leader of the parent coalitions, was once a parent leader herself. They learned through the coalitions. So many of them are serving on committees and workforces within their communities now that are working on the issues that impact families in their communities. They've moved to leading other groups and organizations like the city council, the county commissioners, state public offices across the state. And one of their former leaders is now a state legislator who's chair of the education committee on the Senate side, and has moved her agenda for families to the state's policy tables. So their system approach is having a lot of impact on the quality of programs and services that are far above what they originally planned, and that's what I love about our work with children and families. We do our work and we do it well, and then they, as leaders, go into other positions and carry on the mission that we all care about. So with or without a statewide structure, and I know you have a structure as well, but some states don't, we can still use our power and influence every day to foster ways of both hearing and heeding family voices. That's heeding. I know I have a drawl that's foreign to your ears. And then the last question I asked was, the second question I wanted to ask you is, what is our role in helping family members feel valued and heard. And I know this group is far advanced in that area than some groups that I speak to. But I'll quickly go through my thoughts on this. But connecting with individuals, getting to know them, and letting them know we're eager to learn from them is the first step. It's all about relationships, as somebody said earlier this morning. I believe that as much as anything I believe in my life, is that everything we do that works well and is successful is built on relationships. And you can't ignore that part of this big puzzle. We must show we care and be willing to hear things we might not want to hear about the work we're doing. We can't be resistant to hearing real ideas about what should be happening. Listening without judgment and with understanding, trying to mentally put ourselves in others' places and be able to hear their truth. We need to constantly look for ways to help people participate. And despite our good intentions, we sometimes do things that help people feel like outsiders. So somebody said to me recently, you know, when you have a sign-up sheet and it asks for affiliation, if you're one of the people who really feels like you don't have an affiliation, then you're an outsider to that group. If you introduce yourselves and ask people to give their titles, it's another way of excluding people who don't feel like they have a formal title. It's things we don't even think about. I've done this myself, I'm sure, when I was actually practicing, because we have such habits of doing work like that. But the reason I'm giving you these examples is to examine for yourself what you're doing that would help a person to feel either included or excluded in your work. Let's try to move away from highlighting our roles, our titles, things that can make others feel like outsiders. And then you do this all the time. I've heard you talk about it. You provide childcare, you provide transportation, stipends. I think it's helpful to have a person, especially when families are coming new into a group, have a person assigned to each one who can be the person that answers their questions and follows up after a meeting and says, did you understand everything? What can I explain further for you? Because, you know, they're learners too. They're learners with us. And it's important to help them feel comfortable and feel like the next time they could actually say something or ask a question because they are confident they know what was going on and what was needed. Faithful Families, Thriving Communities is a national organization. It may be in Oregon. I've tried to find that out and I couldn't, so it might not be. But it's a national organization that believes that communities of faith are important health advocates, particularly in communities affected by health disparities or lacking access to crucial resources. It embraces all religions and is respectful of every faith tradition. It recognizes and embraces the role that families can play as partners in their communities. In rural Nash County, North Carolina, the local Early Childhood Partnership began sponsoring Faithful Families groups and learned from them about the needs of the families in their communities. As a result, these Faithful Families are a key part of decision-making about programs that serve rural children and families. For example, when the community is recruiting pre-K and kindergarten programs every fall, these are the consultants they use, and they go out and find, recruit, inform families and parents, and help them sign up for those programs. It seems like a simple idea, but it took us a long time to figure out that we can't just put a sign up on the corner of the street that says, come sign up on Saturday at 2, and expect that the families, especially the families whose children may need this the most, they may be the most isolated from other children. But the their church friends, their church ladies, and these are mostly women, I asked that question, but they know these families, so they can go and actually get them signed up. And they had the best enrollment the first year they started this that they've ever had, like getting kids signed up early for school. Faithful Families have also worked on policy issues around suspension of young children from child care programs, that's an example. And also they've been just really committed to making sure that all their early childhood programs, whether they're in schools or child care or Head Start, are developmentally appropriate for the age and stage of their children, and that they're teaching in ways where children are experiencing and doing things. It's been really fun to watch. But the great thing, in addition to that, is these faith leaders have become huge advocates for the hub. We call them partnerships in North Carolina, but for the local partnership, anything they need volunteers for, they're stepping up. So it's just a way that the faith leaders feel heard and appreciated, and then want to contribute back to the partnership and to the community. How will we know that family voices are heard? I'm going to give you 3 ways that I think you can actually measure that. The first one is when we change what we're doing and how we're doing it. When we actually change something that we've done it forever, we're good at it, we got some good data on it, but it's not meeting the needs of the families we serve. The second way is when we make different decisions than we would have made without hearing the voices. And the third is when the parents and families included in our work are actually making decisions about things that affect them and other families. So it's a progression. I know that you can be in different stages of this, and an example is Bridgeport, Connecticut. Citywide leaders did a health services survey to all their families, and they were shocked by what they found out. They were collecting lived experience, which is different than, do you have enough of or whatever. And they found that the services they were providing were difficult to access and navigate. There was a lack of awareness that even services existed, especially in particular areas. Home visiting, this is sad, but it's probably true. Home visiting was associated with a stigma in the city. Many people thought that home visiting was just for people who had problems or issues. And they heard from several different people that home visiting meant you had messed up. Home visiting providers often didn't represent the communities they served. Families gave example of racism and racially biased maternal health services in the area. And they learned that there was a lack of access to supports and basic needs like housing and food and diapers and all those important things. But it was such an eye-opener that the city leadership got involved, and they used the data to change their model, which they described as, we figured out that we were just informing or consulting, and we needed to get into a more robust way of responding to these needs. In a very determined way, and over a short time, they evolved their work to what they now call a shifting power model. And they transformed community messengers to be community consultants. And what I loved about it is they were called consultants and they were paid the same wages as their consultants for other things. It transformed the work they're doing. They're so proud of how much they've changed and how it's worked. And they now call this Bridgeport Prospers because of the difference it made. I asked the leader of this group, Allison, what did she think the key lessons in this are? And these are my leadership suggestions for as I close this. She said it first takes someone in a leadership role who believes that having parents and families involved is beneficial to achieving your goals. That's different than somebody else's goals, but that in order to achieve my goals in this program, I have to have families involved and making decisions. And she said that some of her partners were not on board, including, sadly, an organization that I've loved and been a part of through the years. Her backbone agency was a United Way that really kind of liked the idea of having parents involved, but they didn't like the idea of parents making decisions. So she said it took a lot in terms of leadership to bring everybody around the table with a united front, a united vision for what to do. She said it also takes a leader who's not afraid of making a mistake and changing gears. You know, we all make mistakes. You just have to admit it and not keep trying to prove it's not a mistake. And then move on, because as you learn, you change the way you're thinking about things. It also takes a leader with self-confidence and the willingness to not only share power, but to give up power for a stronger outcome. So my question is, do we really mean it? And are we really ready to lead in ways that foster parent and family leadership? I want to close with a quote. This is from Kat Cole, who was the president of Focus brand, so it had to do with the business world, but I think it's applicable to us today. Leadership is about the team, and I love that we have teams here. The culture they keep and embrace. It's about empathy for our customers, our clients, our employees, our families, and our communities. It's about doing the right thing for the right reason, being confident enough to take risks and responsible enough to think of those who your decisions and risks may affect. And I would add, it's those who our decisions and risks affect who need to be part of our team. As you hear everything else today, I want you to really keep exploring just how far you yourself are willing to go in true partnership with parents and families. Thank you. And I know I don't have time to answer questions, but I will later if you have any.
I am Leanne Grogan. I'm a program officer here at the Ford Family Foundation. I get really nervous when I'm up here. I don't speak Armenian, but I probably will, you know, who knows what I'm going to say. But I think that keeps it exciting for all of us here. We're really excited for this next section of parents who are going to share with us. I'd like for you guys to go ahead and come on up and get seated. I'm going to say a few things, have a little activity, but just get them on up here. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm a counselor by training, and I was a home visitor for a long time. And so, oh, I'm shaky. Thank you. I need like a little cheerleading group here. In the roles that I have held, I know that this is a really special thing that we have, right? We are a small group of people that knows what it's like to work with clients by going into their homes, sitting at their kitchen tables, playing with their kids on the living room floor. Not everybody gets to do that, right? And when we're in these spaces, we get to truly listen to people. We get to hear their stories. We get to be amazed by their strength and by their resilience. We hear sad stories that break our hearts. And we also just get to see the whole picture, right? The creativity of how people address their challenges. It's just such an exceptional space to be. So before we hear from our parents, I know that every single one of you has an experience with a family that has just blown you away. So take a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath. I'm going to do the same. And think back about a family that changed your life. Hold them in your heart, hold them in your mind for a moment. Honor that experience. Think about the incredible pieces of their journey that you had the privilege to know. What did you learn from them? Now imagine if you could share that out with other people. Would that change the way you did your work? Would it change the direction of your program? Might the expertise of that family reshape how other people walk through the world? Would it inspire somebody else? I think the answer would be yes, right? Yeah. I've had lots of roles where I got to support parent leadership, from policy council, Head Start, right, to maternal child health. I've taken parents to the Capitol. I've taken them to DC. I've let them share their stories, and it is one of the most profound things I've ever gotten to do. So this is really exciting for me. And it's transformative when we can step aside. The story that I tell is never anywhere near as good as the story of someone else, their own story, right? But I also want to honor that this is really vulnerable and really brave when we're asking people to share their stories, right? We don't do self-disclosure. And as a therapist, I'm sure you all have experiences where you've heard a counselor like artfully dodge your questions. I go with something like, that's a really interesting question, and I'm curious why you want to know that about me, right? Like, I don't do this. So I just want to honor that this is really special, and we're asking people to share vulnerable moments and honor what it takes to do that. So we're going to hear from 2 different parent groups today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and I'm going to pass the mic. You ready? Okay, you're first.
This is a fake mic?
That's a fake mic. We're going to move it around. Okay. This is the legit one.
Hi, I'm Jessica Porter with the South Coast Regional Early Learning Hub, and I'm here with our first 2 members of our Parent Advisory Committee.
My name is Mitchell Clark, and I'm a member of the Parent Advisory Committee, and I have a little 5-year-old. His name is Beckett, and he's amazing.
I'm Brett. I have 3. 2 of my little munchkins are over there at the table. You guys have probably heard them giggle throughout the day. And yeah, I was one of the first of the pack, and I'm so excited to be here and so grateful, and I appreciate all of you.
My name is Diane, and I live here in Douglas County, and I am the representative for Douglas County at the state and the local level for the Parent Advisory Council.
Hi, my name is Dustin McClard. I am peer supervisor with Morrison Child and Family Services, and I have the honor of facilitating the Douglas County Parents Advisory Council. I'm a person with lived experience of navigating multiple systems, and I have twins that are 9.
Hot potato. Okay. Hi, so we will be going first. I'm going to try really hard not to use acronyms. The one that we all slip on is PAC. That's our Parent Advisory Council, because that's kind of a mouthful. So I'm going to share what everything has looked like for us at the Hub, and then Mitch and Brett are going to share what it actually looks like. Yeah, it's been a really long process for us. We started 1.5 years ago. We spent about 1 year laying the foundation. So meeting as a team, attending trainings, trying to figure out really what the state was asking so that we could start intentionally with parents. We also spent we've been meeting as a PAC, there I go, for the last 6 months. And before that, we really built relationships and connections with caregivers and parents in our community through a few different things that we'll talk about, because we really wanted to start from a space of shared meaning and those relationships, we could bring them in. So how we bring parents together are through our monthly parent cafes and through coordinated enrollment, which is what I oversee. So our parent cafes are regular, safe spaces for parents to meet and talk about parenting needs, resources in the community, and staff attend as parents ourselves. So it really helped us start from a place of equity. And then coordinated enrollment is bringing those parents into Baby Promise, Preschool Promise, Head Start, and just kind of looping them into our early learning community. It was really important that we made it easy for parents to attend. We pay them for their time. We want to honor their presence. We offer childcare reimbursement. We have technology available, computers, hotspots. We do lots of tech assistance with families to help them attend. We've had families attend from football games where they're like, I can't have my what is the word? Camera. Oh boy. I can't have my I don't know why I looked at you. Sorry, Mitch. I can't have my camera on because like I'm chasing kids at a football game, and just really having everybody come from where they are. And then our PAC themselves actually came up with the idea to have a summary emailed out to everyone who wasn't able to make it the meeting, as well as a survey for their input on anything we discussed. And that helps parents who weren't able to be there feel like they know what happened and they can just jump right in at the next meeting. And then for how we actually brought them in and what it was like.
Camera. You were thinking of camera. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got involved with the advisory committee, and then maybe some tips. I think relationships has been a theme, definitely, that I've already heard, and I think, well, we'll get to that when we get to it. So the way I got involved with the PAC was through my son, and actually a little bit old school technology. It was a flyer. My son attends a preschool program, and he's got his little box, and so certainly I looked at this thing, and it was first at the very end of the school year, a 6-week recharge course. And so another thing I'd focus on is, like, how do you incentivize parents? Like, how do you kind of suck them in? And at least for me, you know, there had to be some sort of carrot, you know, and everybody wants to be a good parent, at least most people do. And so if you dangle that carrot in front of me and say, hey, you know, you want to take an opportunity to be as good a parent as you can be, like, I'll bite that carrot, you know, I'll get involved. And so it transitioned from those to the cafes to then being involved, I guess, in parent leadership. And the only other thing that I'll add on to that is I was kind of brainstorming as I did this whole process. It's kind of distilling everything down to something smaller that's meaningful. And I would say meeting parents kind of where they are. I mean, you're all parents, or at least a lot of you are, most of you, I would surmise. But, you know, everybody's busy. Everybody has their own timeline and their own constraints. And I think a lot of parents can't meet us for no other reason than, let's say, time constraints. So you kind of have to do your best to meet parents where they are, which I think in a lot of senses could mean, like, at schools, that was a good place. I think at places like parks, like, I don't know how relevant this is to reaching out to parents, but maybe if you change your thinking a little bit, that's the place where I go to meet diverse parents, and we share experiences, and where I would go to, I guess, find other leaders in the community. And other places like that, where you meet not only other parents, but also experts as far as, you know, therapist's office or libraries and, you know, other areas like that, I guess. I guess that's all I got for now.
I got started with it, oh man, I've been with I started at the Head Start with Rena in Port Orford, home visiting. And if it wasn't for her, I would have never, ever heard of any of the stuff going on around here. I mean, I lived in California, we were homeless, we came up here, and it has been such a big life change. If it wasn't for the Head Start family, like, I don't know where we'd be. I'm so grateful for it. But the home base was so great. It was great to learn. I got involved in the policy council with the Head Start, and that was like the best experience ever. And then Vanessa had emailed me about the parent cafes, and I saw a flyer, and I was like, oh, I want to do this too. Like, it's got to be like policy council, and I was wrong. It's completely different. Like, I mean, like they're a lot the same, but I mean, we get actually, as parents, get to talk and we feel like we're being heard. I'm not saying that the policy council at the Head Start isn't like that, but I mean, like, it was great. Like, when we started the PAC, we had Advanced Health come in, and we didn't have to listen to them talk. It was nice to actually have them listen to us and be like, hey, what does your community need? And we're like, oh, hey, like, maybe doctors need to take all OHP, or like, you know, like, instead of just a few doctors, everybody take it. And it was nice to actually be heard, and then be like, oh, can we come back? We want to, you know, we want more. Like, what do you guys have for us, you know? And it's like, yay, this is great, because you're actually listening and not just, okay, whatever, you know? And the PAC has definitely done that. Vanessa and Jessica are amazing, amazing. And this group it definitely makes us feel like we're parents and being heard, and not just parents that aren't being heard. And we appreciate it.
Back. Sorry, you have to listen to me again. Thank you, Brad. I'm going to try not to be emotional. We have the distinct privilege at the Hub of being able to have community partners come in, right, and talk to our parents. And we do have some state asks, but how we really started building leadership was starting small with the group. So the parents have control over the entire PAC itself, the day, time, how long we meet, the meeting structure, our norms, all of these things. They actually advocated to expand the ages of that we had, so like parents, like the ages of their children, because it was a great point. Even if they don't have a child currently 0 to 8, they did have a child 0 to 8 in our community, and those experiences matter, and they can really speak to the change over time. And I'm so thankful for that. We also really set the expectation for support. We walk alongside parents. We do that parallel leadership. So like Brett said, like the parents talk to our community partners when they come in, which is really important. And we wanted to make sure it was a safe, equitable space where they could really be heard. Do you want to talk about what it's like to be heard?
Sure, I will talk about what it's like to be heard. It's nice to be heard. As far as, I think a point here to bring up is kind of like shared group norms, you know? It kind of evolves over time about how we kind of make decisions and conversations that we have, but it all starts from leadership and kind of how we kind of structure how we communicate with one another, which is reinforced at the beginning of every meeting, which I think is also important. And we've even added like an orientation to the whole process for new members who maybe aren't familiar with group norms. But I think that's important, well, for several reasons. But one, I think it's important that parents feel empowered and safe. So as we share a lot of personal things about the needs that we have as parents with our kids. And so I'll just review some of the things, like as far as, when it started, like there was a big focus because, you know, it starts off as just a group meeting of being very respectful and cognizant of the people who are giving their time and their attention. So it's important for us to be focused, to not be distracted. We also all have to take care of our families and our kids, because as we know, that's kind of, it's hard to balance. I guess I'd say it that way. So it went starting from something that's very important to give everyone their attention, which they deserve, but kind of move to more balanced where, you know, if you have to take care of your kids or take care of your families, which of course you are, because, you know, the babysitter fell through, or, you know, myriads of other things that you need to take care of as a parent, that those needs are also addressed. And so I would also say, as I think about that, going back to norms for the media format, you know what I mean? Putting your stuff on mute, that's important, believe it or not, you know? Taking yourself on and off camera, we want to see your face to share, so we know who you are and kind of get that sense of ownership and community. On the other hand, when you have to, you know, attend to your kids, you have to turn your camera off, and those simple norms, I think, for the group are very important. I'll dust over some other things, I think. Oh, confidentiality. We do share, you know, personal things. So, you know, what we discuss here, make sure it stays here. Listen without judgment. That can be difficult at times because I think we're used to giving feedback, or we're used to giving advice, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But, you know, to try to reserve that judgment and be a good listener as opposed to a giver of advice. And on that same vein, also share only your own experiences. Online etiquette we talked about. participation can be variable, and that's hard, you know, but you want parents to be involved and give input, but the line between, you know, you don't want to have mandatory input. And there's some days when I give a lot of input myself, and there are other days when I just sit back and watch. And so, depending on the subject, you know, it's subject specific according to my, I don't know, expertise or interest in the subject or whatever, depends on what we're talking about. Icebreakers for us are important because that gives you practice. As the longer that you're kind of part of the group, at first, you know, it's kind of hard to give your input. But after you've attended several of the meetings, you start to, you know, get a little comfortable and relax. And so we do those every day, and it makes sharing easier over time, in my opinion. Then finally, I'm going to say one more thing about the groups. There's always, anytime that I feel maybe I don't have time or anything, I can always reach out to Jessica individually for any subject that maybe I'm not, I can't think of any time when I haven't felt comfortable sharing, but were I, you know, I can reach out to Jessica aside from the group and give my input. Time constraints do become a factor. Everybody wants to share, and so sometimes you run out of time, and that's okay. I just shoot out a little email that says, I had these few opinions as well.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially like if you do have questions, being able to direct email or even text Vanessa or Jessica and having them respond, not right away, you don't expect it, but they really are good about responding to that and making us feel comfortable about asking, even if we think it's a stupid question, you know, nothing's stupid to them, and it makes us feel comfortable. It really does. It's really great to, I mean, even if we have like, oh, we have an idea for a cafe or something, you know, they're always, you know, like, oh, well, how can we make this happen? Who can we bring in to have this happen, you know? And it's just great, like being able to like be in, it's like we're in charge just as much as they are. And that feeling is so great because it's like, I don't feel like, oh, I have to go to another Zoom meeting. It's like, oh, yay, today's a Zoom meeting. Like today we have a Zoom meeting. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be missing it. I gotta drive home. But yeah, just being able to, you guys listen to us and us being able to be like pretty much the ones in charge on what we want to, you know, what are the importance of the community. We did one day where it was just like, you know, we need references. Who can we go to for kids with autism? You know, what can we do? We have kids with this, like what doctors do you recommend in this county? And it was it was great. It was such help. I mean, I got a lot of help. I was able to find food banks and stuff like that. And stuff like that is something we, as parents and a lot of the community without kids even need information on. So finding the resources and them, you know, all of us being able to be like, oh, hey, I got this doctor, this one's great, you know, and like all of us being able to share. It's like we're all a big family and friends and just get to sit there and talk and hang out. And, you know, Jessica said we get paid for it. I'm not one of the parents, I mean, at first I was like, ooh, cool, sweet, extra, you know, money, like this is gonna be awesome. But now it's just like, no, I wanna make this change. I wanna help make this change. And then listening is definitely, it's definitely a big, big plus for me.
You might not be allowed to share anymore because you're going to make me cry. So, okay. So I really appreciated the call out earlier about how mistakes are good and to be expected. And I will say when we first started, we were very enthusiastic. Overly so. And we were just so excited for input. And these are literally the first two parents that ever joined, and they can attest to that. And Mitch has. And we would just like rapid fire questions. Like I'd be like, so what do you want this to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What should we call it? Oh, we had like 3 meetings about the name itself, which is so ridiculous. And now, you know, we know like, yeah, we definitely could have toned it down. And so I think it's so important to adjust to the feel of your group and what those parents need. And something that we wanted to highlight is how we make actual shifts, how we make real changes. As Karen stated earlier, how we change what we do, and particularly things we may not have done. And so we started really slow. We introduced them to who we are at the Hub. Most parents don't know what the Early Learning Hub is. They don't know what this is. Like we roped them along different ways, and then we're like, surprise, you're part of this now. So we did a lot of internal processes and changes. The parent cafes that we talked about, like they picked all of the topics for the year. They picked the structure. They voted for us to go over the summer. We were going to take a break. That's a change that we would not have made. And they were like, no, keep going. And that has been massively beneficial. We have a parent cafe tonight with 50 RSVPs. Yeah, which is the most we've ever had. Like September was our highest attended month versus usually there's, summer lull and then people come back and they have to kind of get back into it. So going year round was the best change. They shortened the time of the meetings from 2, I know that's a lot, to 1.5 hours. They were like, we're not doing 2. Like our kids are done and they're sprinting around after. Because we oversee coordinated enrollment, they were able to shape that process a lot. They're like, you're giving way too much information right off the bat. Like, we want to know what's going on and then have a website we can look at. And then they've made a lot of changes to the website, which has been amazing. They helped us with our flyers for preschool and baby promise. And they focused on things that we maybe wouldn't have. I think it was Brett actually who said, like, talk about if it's nurturing, if it's safe. Like, I want to know how it feels to drop my kid off there, not like high quality curricula. Like that's, like what is it really going to be like for my child? And I like such a good point. I, as a parent, that's how I feel too, but like you don't think about it. They also want us to do really distinct branding. They're like, we want to know who you are and when you are a part of things so that we can see that in the community. And that was incredibly helpful. We highlight change at every single meeting. Right after we do, I think, our icebreaker, we have a slide of here's what we did with all of the things you said last month. Here's exactly what we changed. We set up that expectation. We also intentionally partner with community agencies that are required to get feedback. So not every agency has to have, parents pulled between. We had Advanced Health, a coordinated care organization, come and talk about social emotional health metrics of incoming kindergartners and barriers in the community. And they're actually coming back this month to talk about what they did with that feedback. We're like, you can absolutely come, but you have to come back and let us know what you did. And parents we were just talking about how excited we are to hear what they've done. We had our parenting hub come to talk about topics and outreach, and they were super surprised to hear email lists are still a thing. Because Mitch is anti-social media, and so he was like, you gotta stop doing everything on Facebook. Like, you're not reaching a bunch of people that way. Like, flyers are where it's at, which was really awesome. And then, email, man, yeah. I can talk about it. Okay. We also hold 10 minutes at the end of every meeting after a community organization has come in to talk about how it went. Like, was that what they were expecting to see? How did that feel for them? Was that, do we want them to come back, or is that not a good use of their time? And they also have set now like how they want organizations to come in and limit how much they talk, because partners are so excited to see parents and to get feedback, and they're overly enthusiastic, so we need them to rein it in a little bit, which has been really amazing.
Yeah, you were speaking about enthusiasm early on, like in our earliest meetings. Jessica would ask like a block of, she'd get on this very important spree of thoughts. So I remember she would speak for, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And then what you realize as you listened was there was actually 5 questions involved in 30 seconds of talking. And then so I'd try to break it down. That was my goal. Okay, let's start from what's the first thing? Let's start from the beginning and then move towards the end. And so I guess kind of breaking up the thoughts has been kind of nice and important. So as far as it's concerned, how do I see my impact was kind of where we're headed, I think. And so, and what makes me feel empowered as a parent and as a leader. I think I would answer that in brief with effectiveness. And I think, I guess when our partners that are approaching us or coming to us and asking for our advice, I think that's what makes me feel the most empowered. It's also important to understand, I think, from the Screll partners that our voices are being heard, and that what we're saying is being received, and that we're talking about valuable things that are valuable to us as parents, as well as our rural communities. I think I feel empowered when I think that we're headed in the right direction as far as the subject matters. They match my values. I think they're important to our community, and that any changes that we could potentially make are impactful. And I feel empowered when I feel like we're the things that we're discussing with our partners are affect our community in a positive way. And that's when I feel empowered.
Brett feels that Mitch covered it all, not that I shunned her from speaking. I just want to highlight that. So our last section is next steps. What are we looking at? So we are continuing group development because we have had rapid growth. We went from 2 to 12 really consistent parents and caregivers, which is amazing, but that's constantly reestablishing those group norms and redoing that orientation and making sure those incoming know what we're doing and that they can, participate on the level everyone can. We're actually bringing parent leaders to our Early Learning Hub Governance Council in December. So really starting to introduce them to that process. And we will be utilizing PAC feedback for our community investment funds, which we are very excited about. And if you guys want to talk briefly about what next steps you'd like to see with the PAC, or
sure. As far as the next steps specifically in the PAC, I guess when that question was presented to me, I thought of, action. There's some value in parents talking to other parents and us coming up with plans and what we think is good for the community. But then, it's a whole nother step to go from, talking about resources to actually, seeing change in the community and having parent access to, some of the things that, we think as parents are important. So I wrote that down as kind of bridging the gap. And anyway, we talk about a lot of those things, and we talk about a lot in the group about what we need. And so as far as the parent participation is concerned, it gives us a chance to kind of pool our thoughts about what our community needs, which, is obviously a lot of what the goal is. I have lots of other things, but I think that's the distilled part that I tried to stick to.
I also love that we not only focus on the community, but also the parents' health and mental health and anything that is going on in their house. And that's something that's very important to me. It was, I'm a single mom, and mental health to me is one of my biggest priorities. I mean, everybody's always like, gotta put my kids in front of myself. And it's like, no, I'm the person, my mental health's way comes first. It's the first thing. But with this PAC and all the other hub cafes we have done, they have helped me in mental ways I didn't even know was possible. Like, I got more help from them than my therapist alone. So I really want to see, I love the fact that we really, I was the first person, it was just me, Jessica, and Vanessa in the meeting for an hour and 10 minutes trying to figure out what could we do to bring more people in. And then Mitch came in, and now, like Jessica said, we have 50 people RSVPing for these meetings, and it's like, this is great, this is what I want to see, because, a lot of parents, they don't want everybody thinks that, they don't need the help. If they get the help, they're a weak parent or they're a weak person, and it's like, no, help isn't bad, especially when it comes to our future for our children. And this has helped in so many ways, and I can't wait to see it grow even bigger than it already has, and I'm so excited for that, mostly.
Do we have time for Q&A, or do we want to go to the next? Do we have time for Q&A, or do we want to go to the next? Do we have questions right now, or can we? I think let's move on down. We'll be around. We'll do questions at the end. Your turn.
Hi again. I'm still Dustin. I am grateful to work for a program that strives to incorporate 3 values into all the work we do with families. Those values are personal growth and change, mutual support, and parent leadership. We talk about those values in one of the dynamics that we do to support families in the community, which is our facilitating parent support groups. And I was facilitating a group this a few years ago, and we talk about those in kind of like our opening statement. Here are the values of our support group. And a parent asked me for the first time, what's parent leadership? Direct question, and I loved her answer. I'm not gonna say the full answer because I don't wanna be the first one to use a swear word here today in this event. But her answer was very close to it's me wondering if I'm doing this blank right, and if I'm not, being okay with it and learning from it. And that really stuck with me. And that's when I think about the connection between parent leadership and system change, that's what I think about. I think about 3 components of what is parent leadership, first off, and I heard it mentioned from our panel today, empowerment. That's what it is to me. It's empowerment and it's confidence. When parents feel empowered, it helps to build trust and credibility with the community and with their community providers. When parents have a voice in shaping and evaluating the services that they allow into their home, and I emphasize on that they allow into their home, it creates a sense of ownership and investment into the services provided. That they allow part is just so huge for me. It is an absolute honor every time I'm allowed in a family's home, when they invite me into their safe, private sanctuary space and into their life. And as a person who has been involved with multiple systems with my family and myself, those are big deals. Specifically when, not specifically, that might be the right word, particularly when most of the time when we have people coming, I shouldn't say we, when I've had people coming into my home before, they haven't been good experiences. They weren't for the right reasons. What it does is encourages families and other families to engage with their provider, and because they know their perspectives are valued and respected. I think about the why. Why is it important? When involving parents in the decision-making process, supports can gain valuable insights. Just getting to know the family. And it helps understand that their priorities and the challenges that the family is experiencing, which leads to more effective and tailored services available to be provided for the family. It ensures program responsiveness. It builds trust and creates consistency within families by involving parents in decision-making processes. Supports can enhance the effectiveness and impact of the services being provided. I feel like I might have just said that a second ago, kind of, maybe a different way. There's also an opportunity, I believe there's an opportunity between parent leadership and program sustainability. By empowering parents to take on leadership roles, providers have individuals who can and are often able to, and are here today doing so, sharing their experiences to be able to advocate for continued funding, support, and have tremendous impact on policymakers. So here's a $1 million question, right, is how? Like how do we instill parent leadership within families? I think a better question would be, is how do we bring out the parent leadership qualities that the families already have? I heard it last night at our event. I've heard it a couple times here today. For me, it's one word. It's the relationships. That's where it starts at. Helping a family be able to find the space that allows their strengths to thrive, and that's going to look different for everybody. Some of the components, I'm sure many of us strive to practice, are transparency, communication, and secondary to communication, nonverbal communication is so important. It is absolutely picked up on, and in sometimes very much overanalyzed by families we're working with. I know I certainly did myself. Just reading energy, eye contact, those things and are just so important, that nonverbal communication when connecting with families. Consistency, patience. Meeting a family where they're at is something that we talk about a lot, and that could look, what does really that mean? And that could mean a lot of different things. For me, it means, to put it like simply, if I have a provider coming into my home and I'm thinking about the eviction notice I have, or my housing, or my food insecurities, or that my parole or probation officer is going to be stopping by in any minute now, am I really going to be able to focus on the other provider that's coming into my home, and really be attentive to that? And that's a big piece. Is many families like myself are navigating multiple systems at once. When we say that word really lightly and loosely, right? System. Like, what is a system? It's different in many aspects, and like myself, many families are trying to get through all these challenging times, and sometimes I won't say dealing with, but in some ways it did feel that way for me sometimes. And dealing, or I was about to say what I didn't want to say. Navigating with the community supports, not just the support that we're providing, but another one and another one and another one, oftentimes at the same time, with those life stressors that are happening in the background. And without that relationship piece that we strive to establish in the beginning, a provider might not know that. Without that trust and rapport being built, a family might not mention that. They might not tell you that, which could come off as disengaging in some ways. I was still debating. I probably decide if I'm going to share this or not. It's kind of that time to decide. So I'm going to share two experiences that I had, and more around the feelings I had with them, without naming the umbrella of the agency. I had a person come into my home, a community partner, and it was my very first time meeting this person, and I have twins, and she was there to talk about my twins and provide some support around an aspect of that. And my son, my twin son, was, goodness, I think he made just maybe under a year, right around there, and his first word was babe, and he was talking to me. I was babe. And he was babe because that's what he heard. My wife called me all the time. And we thought it was just the cutest thing. Myself and my wife, we thought it was just the cutest thing when he did that. The way he said it, hey babe, was just so like special to us, you know. And so this provider's in our home for our first time, and kind of just talking, just small talk, you know, an introduction type meeting. And when we got done, I walked her downstairs, and she said, I have a concern I want to share. I heard your son calling you babe a lot. Like, that's something we need to work on. And I just looked, I don't remember exactly what my response was. It was probably like, okay, you know, but it wasn't an opportunity. And I went back and told my wife, and we kind of looked at each other like, nah, we're not going to change that, you know? And just that's what I remember from that first interaction was this, that lack of collaboration, and it was more of like, that was something wrong. And it might be to certain aspects, you know, or to certain people, but it certainly wasn't to us and wasn't to our family. And then lastly, an experience, and I definitely want to say that over time, so I even did consider like, do I still want to do that? Do I still want to do this, like this service? I wasn't really sure. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to continue to participate in this in that service. I did decide to, and over time, I was able to develop a relationship with the person. So I think it got better from the beginning, and I certainly didn't realize this then. I think a lot of people might have said, no, thanks, I'm not doing that again. And if I probably wasn't dealing with or wasn't managing and navigating so many systems at the same time, trying to keep track of them all, I think there's a chance I might have declined. Another one was, and this is a feeling, and that's kind of why I'm sharing these experiences, because I want to emphasize like what I remember from those. And I did have a rapport with that person and this next experience I'm going to share. After, like, it was almost like after some of the initial ones. So this provider, somebody who came to my house, but not very often as part of their like program. And a friend of ours had a kiddo that was in the same class. And she was telling us about like, the teacher came over and it was so awesome, and they brought me a gift card for Safeway for grocery shopping, and he was just so funny and came hang out. And so I'm like, she's telling me about her experience. And that's another thing. I'm gonna go off track for a minute, so remind me where I was, okay? Parents talk, communities talk. That's a really important aspect. Like there are families out there right now talking about the services that are provided with their brother, their cousin, their mom, their aunt, and I think that also has a direct impact on opportunities for for parent leadership and overall engagement. Circling back, where was I? Thank you, gift card. My time with this person was scheduled for a few days later or next week or something. I cleaned cleaned the whole house. We got it ready, got the twins all cute and dressed up. Like, it wasn't very often I had a visitor over for like a good reason. And in general, having people into my home was something that was taken very seriously, and I know the same way with a lot of families as well. And I lived in an apartment at the time, with a locked building, a secure building, and so they hit the buzzer, and he said, "You just coming over? I'm here for the appointment." And I said, "Okay, cool, I'll be right down." And I walked down the stairs and met them, and they said, "Well," and we talked for maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. And he said, "Well, it was great to see you. Everything's good." And it was before we even left. And I remember the feeling at the time of wondering, like, just feeling not important. That's what I felt. I just felt not important. And over time, because I started volunteering at this place, and over time I was able to develop a good rapport with this person. But that's the first thing I think of when I think of how our relationship started off, was me as a parent feeling unimportant. Like, I'm glad my house is clean, but I probably wouldn't have cleaned it that good, like just having somebody else over. Like, there's still a silver lining in it. All the conversations that we have with other people, that we have with families, what we don't remember is oftentimes what was said. What we keep with us is the feelings about how we felt when those conversations happen. I guess to summarize, to me, parent leadership extends beyond the family unit and into the community in multiple ways. Parents can and do make positive impacts in their communities by advocating for their own children's needs, participating in school and community organizations, and collaboration with other parents to be able to build a support system. That collective effort improves well-being of families and strengthens the community as a whole. And I leave with a question, knowing that we all have opportunities every day to make a difference in somebody else's life. That's my question: is what type of difference are we going to make with the family that we're working with today?
Thank you, Dustin. My name is Diane, and I am the Douglas County Parent Advisory Council within ODHS, Child Welfare and Self-Sufficiency. Typed up a little thing here so I stay on track, because I can talk. Okay, so I never thought I'd be asked to do a job that required me to have an open child welfare case or be a recovering addict. I tried every day since the day I got released to be a better person. I continually got knocked down by society at every turn. I couldn't change. I would always be a criminal addicted to drugs. I was never going to have a career. Society set me up to fail before I ever had a chance. And then I answered a phone call, and it changed my life. They wanted my help. I worked tirelessly to get this PAC going with Jessica Hunter, the program director of the child welfare in Douglas County, and Morrison. I joined the state PAC while I was getting things in motion, because apparently it's a long process. There's lots of different components to having a local parent advisory council. And Douglas County just wasn't there yet. So I joined to get my foot in the door, to ensure that I could help in every way possible until that could happen. This PAC is a game changer for Douglas County. Douglas County is always last to get everything because we are a smaller county, but this time we were the first local parent advisory council within ODHS, and so it was very exciting. Parents with lived experience working within ODHS brings a unique and invaluable perspective. It fosters trust and engagement with the community. Families are more likely to feel understood and supported when they see us working within the system. And they have not wasted any time with our time. There are 5 of us on the council, and nobody works for DHS directly. Most are community partners within the county that are parents with lived experience. We've done family time coordinators. We have a representative from my child welfare here. We've got to meet with family time coordinators. We've gotten tours of visitation rooms. We've met with, there's my son, I told him he thinks it's an emergency. Sorry. We met with 2 sets of caseworkers because there were so many within child welfare, and it was very emotional, you know. My case was over 10 years ago. My cases were closed in 2015. And so to be in the room with the very person that removed my newborn baby from the hospital, you know, I wasn't expecting it. So last week was very emotional. This week was much better. Yesterday, we met with the second half yesterday, and it was much better. But to be able to let them see that raw emotion on my face, and the wonderful things that I did have to say about child welfare. I became very passionate to work with child welfare and self-sufficiency because my case wasn't like many other people's. I left with great relationships with child welfare. And I'm grateful for everything that they did for me and my kids. And I knew that, yes, their system may be somewhat broken, but they could change. And I wanted to be the one to tell them, you know, like, we can do this. And so ODH, as we continue to give feedback and they accept it, good or bad, I'm just excited to see where it goes, because I don't know how many departments are in child welfare or self-sufficiency, but they're like, we want them next, we want them next, we want them next. And they get to ask us questions and we get to answer them honestly. And it's nice to be heard, you know, and to feel like what I have to say matters. And I never expected that, never in a million years. I'm 100 hours away from being a licensed veterinarian assistant, and I never seen this, I never seen this career change to working with ODHS, and it's not for them, I work with them. I couldn't remove kids from homes. That's just, I'm not cut out to do that, but I can help parents who were in my same situation. And so it's been a long process, we're here, we got it, and I'm super excited. Do I still have time to talk about the contingent stuff? Yeah, I do, okay. So I also am on a parent advisory council for self-sufficiency with the contingent out of Portland. Thriving Families, Safe at Home, they do kind of a bunch of stuff. We've partnered with Casey Family. We headed a survey led by 8 of us. There was 8 of us in the council. We were all parents with lived experience, and we got 350 survey participants because it was handed out by us. We put little QR codes on the flyer so they can explain who the contingent was. Like, hey, we're not DHS, you know, this is completely anonymous, we don't want your information. And 23 counties responded. 26% were engaged with child welfare currently. 75% of them received government assistance within the last year. And they told us all kinds of things. Leading up to involvement with child welfare, families said that they needed housing, addiction or recovery support, more income, and easier access to services. We pretty much seen the same needs across the rural and urban areas. They were just slightly different prioritized. Like, one was this and one was this. So rural areas said their #1 need was food assistance, and urban said it was housing. So same things, just in different orders. And so we have just secured funding for, it's a 2-year contract with Casey Family, and we are going to be creating a universal tool, an electronic tool of sorts, that is going to work kind of like a universal referral system. So people can access everything they could possibly need in one place. We acted out scenarios and split into 2 groups, and we pretty much came up with the same kind of idea for this electronic system. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. We are going to be rolling out pilot counties. I don't remember off the top of my head which counties they were, but they are already picked. And I'm just super excited. I leave next week to fly to Arizona. There's a working session with Thriving Families, and I am attending as a parent with lived experience, and I'm really nervous because I've never flown before, but I'm excited, to meet all these wonderful people that at the end of the day, their priorities and their values align with mine. And I mean just as much as the CEO, like I don't feel different. I don't feel like I'm less than. And I think at the end of the day, as a parent who has been through and have done the things that I've done, at the end of the day, that's all I could ever ask for, is that you see me. And I'm no different than any of you guys. And I'm human and I matter. And that's all I could ever ask for. Thank you.
Thank you. We're right at the end, right, of our time here. The survey that Diane was talking about is in your packet, so I want to make sure that you know that. And please join me again in thanking our wonderful parents. We're on a break, yeah?
Yeah, and if you did have a question for the families, definitely make sure and write it down. There's a poster a sticky poster on the back wall that says questions for parents. So what we will do is collect any question you had today that either you didn't get answered or something that you want to know, and we will get those questions to the proper people, and then we can communicate back to you what we collect and what we get answers for. So